Cheers, everyone. It is Damien, aka Sleepy Reader, or Sleepy Book Reader, I really should say. And I have my guest, very super special guest, David, the Garage Geek. We are here today to talk very belatedly about the Hugo nominees of the 2023 Hugos. So David has his own channel, which covers books, vinyl, movies, comic books, and anything else David feels like covering. But he should be considered a member of the BookTube community, as far as I'm concerned.
In fact, in my last video, I used the hashtag BookTube.
That
makes it official.
That made it very official.
Yes.
And David is living up to his name. He is in his garage, surrounded by dogs, books, and other collectibles.
Yes.
And so when we started out, we agreed to read the Hugo nominees, and the Hugos hadn't even been announced at that time. And we were so slow that we hadn't finished reading them by the time the winner was announced. Yeah. But by Hugo nominees, we're meaning the nominees for the 2023 novel category in the Hugos, because they have many other categories.
Yeah.
And so here I'm gonna do my little screen thing. So this is the Hugo what do you call it? Trophy.
Statuette, yeah.
Trophy. Statuette, there you go. Which has the traditional rocket ship, but then what seems to be, we think, a panda coming out of a portal.
Yeah. And I think it's the Star Trek portal from like one of the really, really early episodes.
The famous episode with the time travel to the Nazi times.
Yeah.
With that famous actress in it. And then so the books we covered, let's see. Oh, there's another picture from the Hugos. I guess that's what it looked like on the Hugo stage. And it should be noted, the Hugos every year are run by the World Science Fiction Convention, wherever it happens to be. This past year, it was in China. It does turn out that the Chinese government interfered, apparently, and kept some people off the ballots who had opinions they didn't like. Some authors of Chinese extraction, but who are not Chinese citizens, got removed, I believe, and maybe one or two others. It's a little confusing to me exactly what the pattern there was.
Well, then don't hold them there again. I mean, if
don't hold them in totalitarian government, in totalitarian states.
Yeah, if they could say, okay, you can't vote for this person, we're not even putting them on the ballot.
So there were 6 nominees, and we only read 5 of them. So the one we did not read was Nona the Ninth.
Yes.
For the very good reason that we would have had to read 3 volumes to get to Nona the Ninth, because from what everyone says, it's all one story. So Nona the Ninth is the 3rd volume in this Locked Tomb series.
Yes.
But you managed to read the 1st volume.
Yes. I was determined to get to this one.
Gideon the Ninth.
Yeah. And I will do it eventually, but I did read the first one and I quite enjoyed it. It ended in a strange way, and I was wondering how it ended in a way that made me want to continue with the second one. But the second one is, again, very long, and so I did get it out of the library, but I had to return it because I just didn't have time for it. But I've put it on my wait list again. I will get to it eventually, and I will get to this one.
And it should be noted that my 15-year-old daughter considers this series the best series written of all time that she's ever read.
I did enjoy the first one a lot.
So she is eagerly awaiting the 4th and presumably final book. But then we did read the winner, Nettle and Bone. And so you and I have never got to talk about Nettle and Bone. What did you end up feeling about it?
I really enjoyed it, and I thought of all the books it deserved to win. I thought they made the right choice. Did you feel that?
I did not feel that, but I don't know who should have won. I don't have a strong opinion on who should have won. I thought it was very well done, and here's the thing. When I started reading it, I thought it was one of those grim, dark books. And then it turned kind of humorous and romantic. And so I got thrown off. Like at the beginning, it's all bloody and stark and all about just how women are used for their wombs. And, you know, and that was very powerful. And I liked it. And then suddenly it took a lighter tone. You know what I mean? I don't know if you experienced the same thing.
Yeah, and it did, you know, become like an outcast of characters who come together to try
Right.
to create a goal. Like they form this,
Yeah.
you know,
And a lot of the characters have kind of become kind of cutesy,
yeah,
not in a negative way, but they're in a fun way. So
yeah,
it felt like two different novels to me. And I think if it were the dark feminist novel, grim dark feminist novel that it seemed at first, I might have thought it was a little more the obvious choice for the award.
yeah. So I actually don't read a lot of fantasy,
Yeah.
as you know. And so for me, when I
And
read
Nettle and Bone is purely fantasy. There's no question, is it science fiction or is it fantasy or anything like that?
yeah, so for me, this is like kind of a breath of fresh air because, of course, I'm familiar with a lot of these tropes, but I don't read this type of book that often. So it seemed really, really nice to me. But I could see, you know, a lot of those tropes along the way. But I thought the writer kept it entertaining, and I don't know. I really did enjoy it, and I thought the writing was the best of all of the books.
And I am totally ignorant of the current science fiction and fantasy scene. But my impression is this is a very popular author and has gained a lot of goodwill from writing a lot of good books. So that may be a factor in her winning. I don't know.
In fact, this same year, I'm not sure, but one of her other either books, like a novelette,
Novella or novel.
yeah, was also on the list. And I
Right.
actually listened to that one, and it was even better than this.
Interesting.
Right
Maybe I should try that. Yeah, she's definitely now in my mind as a writer I would like to read more of. But
Yeah.
the novel turned on me in a weird way. And while I do enjoy all those tropes, I did again think in my mind, well, is this something that should win, you know, the very best of the year kind of award? And we can discuss maybe what in our minds the Hugo should be versus what maybe it is.
Oh yeah.
And the other book that we didn't get a chance to discuss between the two of us yet, or on videos on our other channels, because we started this project before I had a BookTube channel.
Yeah, that's true.
Was The Spare Man, which advertises itself as a science fictional take on The Thin Man. And so, when you were in the middle of reading it, I'm trying to get back to it. So this is by Mary Robinette Kowal, who has previously won the Hugo and the Nebula Awards for other novels of hers. And I love this. This is my favorite cover, I think.
Well, it really does harken back to The Thin Man. Yeah. But notice it puts the female character front and center and with a spotlight on her. So that's an interesting choice.
And the husband is in shadows. I think the husband was supposed to be a dark-skinned person, although I was never 100% sure of that while reading the books. And yeah, that was supposed to be an issue, one of the factors of what was going on in the book.
Yeah. So do you want to like discuss each book, or you just want to let's just go through all of them?
I think we'll just go through each one once, and then I'm just
go back. All right.
So we already talked about Nettle and Bone. If you want to loop back to any of the books,
I do. Yeah.
So for me, The Spare Man seemed like a really cool idea, and for a while I was enjoying it, and then it just got incredibly, incredibly repetitive to my mind. And I really struggled. If we weren't doing this project, I would not have finished this book.
Yeah, I am. I don't like mysteries, to be honest with you. And I have a problem with the genre because I don't like all of the extra details that are there just to try to confuse you, which, you know, and then I don't want to have to keep track of all these details and then try to figure out who did what, right? It's a whodunit. But having said that, and knowing that this was a mystery, I kind of just went through it and kind of ignored all those red herrings and stuff. And I was trying to enjoy it for what it was, because the original Thin Man is a mystery, right? And it has the same problem trying to get through it, but it's also kind of showing the times about relationships and maybe open marriages and lots of high society drinking and like all of these kind of things. And a lot of that is touched upon in this updated version, but with a woke sensibility. There's a lot of wokeness in not only this book, but like the Hugo, more so than anything, is like a wall slamming you in the face of wokeness.
Wow.
It's like you see it right through every single book. And I don't mind that.
But I didn't think it was that bad in the other books. I did think it was bad in this book.
But yeah, but it's
I can be fine with the wokeness if the story, I don't know. I just found it so, it really should have been a novelette, like a shorter novella. There wasn't enough there, and she was stretching and stretching and stretching in my mind.
It was just they kept mentioning the fact that she was a high class society woman, and she would have to use that information,
right?
But she felt bad about it and she shouldn't do it, but she went ahead and did it. And then
she always did it.
And then she was always constantly saying, "How dare you assume my gender?" And I was just like, come on, are they still saying that 300 years from now? Like they haven't gotten over this yet? Like it was.
And the message almost seemed to be that the working class people were not to be trusted, and only the sophisticated rich people really were good in the end.
Yeah. So I mean, but overall, I did enjoy the book. I'm not saying it was a bad book, but I did enjoy it.
I think I am saying it was a good novelette stuffed into a bad novel.
Okay. But it has a nice cover. The dog is
even after a while, because of the repetition, the writing style began to bother me, and the details she chose to repeat over and over again, like your mention of the her wealth privilege, and it never really, it repeated these issues but never explored them deeper, in my opinion. So I do think there was good writing, but again, it was good until it started repeating over and over again. Yeah. But I thought she was obsessed with pronouns, right?
Overly so.
Again, if she went deeper into that and explored more about how societies really had changed other than its obsession with pronouns.
Well, I mean, when you look at this cover, they're clearly presenting as male, female, and it doesn't matter. Like, let's say that central character is a man, but that man is clearly wanting to be seen as a female. So unless the author set up a world where you could dress however you want, but prohibited, and we've gotten over, when we first see someone, we automatically try to say he or she, but none of that was established. And so for someone to look at her and address her as she, and then she gets rankled by that, it didn't make sense.
Yeah. And the only real use of the pronoun thing was that the bad guys, the bad police officers, the corrupt police officers, did not properly use pronouns.
Yeah, and she's the only one that attacked it. And then in the same breath, she would say, "Oh, I hate using my privilege here with them." But that's exactly what you're doing. That doesn't make any sense. So, I was just laughing because I thought that should have been developed. And it could have worked. Like, that's what we want from a sci-fi person, to show us how society has changed and how these ideas that we're grappling with now have developed into the future. But it seems like this writer took the mess that we have right now and just plopped it down in that world of, I don't even know when the time frame was, but it's definitely in the future.
It's got to be a couple hundred years in the future, given all the space travel and
And
colonization.
we've made no progress on this issue.
Yeah.
Like, show me a world where this works. Like, the mess that we have right now has been resolved and works. That would have been more interesting.
Right. Like, I've heard people say it was good because the heroine was disabled and she had had some serious, I guess, back injury or other injuries, and she had some kind of drug delivery system in her body that she controlled.
Yep.
And that was an interesting concept, but again, it wasn't explored. It was just repeated over and over again, I thought.
Yeah. I had forgotten about that, but yeah, you're right. I actually did like that about her character because, you know, I have migraines, and for many, many years I didn't have medication, and I would have to suffer through them.
Right.
And you can feel them coming on. And so when you have a character like that, like, she knows it's coming, and she knows that if she does this certain thing, that it's going to bring it about, but she's got to do it anyway. Yeah, that was actually an interesting part of that character, and I had totally forgotten that until you mentioned it.
Yeah, I wish the author. So this is one of the books, and several of the others do too, have an afterward saying this was written during COVID and this was my COVID book. But I wish the author had wanted to dig deeper into her material. And it didn't help that when I read The Thin Man, an audiobook, I did not do The Spare Man as an audiobook. I read that physically, and maybe that's what made the repetition more painful. But the audiobook of The Thin Man I loved, even though I'm not a big mystery fan, because there was so much on-the-spot detail about life at the time, especially amongst a certain kind of decadent, or it seemed also about dysfunctional families and stuff.
Yeah.
So I thought it was pretty brilliant, actually.
I love all the one-liners about drinking, and I know that's probably really bad. Like, that's probably like canceled right now, but I think they're hilarious. And but like the things that they say, it's just like, yeah, like they wake up and they need gin, and it's like, and this guy is brilliant, right? Which is one problematic area of The Thin Man. It's because, or even in this one, like, the man is, you know, a lot more brilliant, and we're kind of at the sidekick. We're always stuck with the sidekick. It's my problem that I have with Sherlock Holmes, right? We're always getting Watson's point of view, and he's not as smart. And but yeah, like, he's really, really brilliant, but he's got this serious flaw of drinking all the time. And those one-liners are hilarious in that book.
And of course, in the case of Dashiell Hammett, he had a serious drinking problem. Really serious.
Yeah. And we shouldn't be laughing at this stuff, but it's pretty funny. Like, those one-liners are funny as you see him, like, self-destructing, right? Yeah.
But the Spare Man also had a lot of drinking, but somehow it was under control, and it was all about the fine cocktails, you know, the different cocktail mixes and stuff.
That was also another thing. The chapter,
and there's an afterword. Oh, sorry.
Each chapter or section started with a drink recipe.
Yes, that was kind of clever, I thought. Although, again, I don't know what she wanted to say about alcohol and drinking. She in her afterword also mentioned you could do all of these drinks non-alcoholic, and there's nothing wrong about not drinking alcohol, and that it's unfair that men can absorb much more alcohol than women and are expected to keep up with men in the drinking. And I don't know, but that didn't seem to be part of the novel. Sorry, it's the one novel I'm down on.
Can you just put that black and white photo of the two actors with the dog? How cute is that? Yeah. And they're both and the human actors are just as adorable as the dog. I mean, and you went ahead and watched at least the first movie, right?
I watched three Thin Men. Yeah, I really enjoyed them. I got into it.
I really wanted to, but I've seen them before, but I haven't seen them in years and years, and I wanted to, but time just got away from me. But what an adorable picture that is.
Now, Mary Robinette Kowal did use the cute dog as sort of part of her detectiving technique of distracting people with the cute dog, or disarming people with it.
And there was this
pretty good, yeah.
There was a future thing, like she was only allowed to have the dog. They were like banned or something, or they were extinct.
Right.
And she could only have it because of her medical problem.
Right. And
like
being
a comfort
wealthy,
dog.
I assume.
Yeah, it was a comfort dog. It would help her calm down, I think, or something like that. I remember.
Yeah, therapy dog.
She used the
it was
dog
trained to remind her of her own physical condition somehow.
Yeah.
And get her to calm down when she needed to.
Yeah. So that was, but the dog was used in that book. Maybe
more. So that's, but again, it was part of her privilege in a weird way.
Yeah.
And that was, again, anyway, and another book that is based or has as a touchstone of another more famous book, the Daughter of Dr. Moreau. We did do a video on this, so I'll put links to videos we've done in the past about them. And I think we had kind of mixed feelings about this book, as I remember. And we also both read the original Dr. Moreau at the same time, which is a superior book. I mean, it stands out, at least to what you and I think.
We both really enjoyed that. Both not, I don't know about you, but I hadn't read it in years. I think you were the same, right? You hadn't read.
I think I read it as a kid or something.
Yeah, and we both really ended up enjoying it. I remember the first time I read it, I disliked it, but now I really enjoyed it. And
I thought it was just kind of an ugly book as a kid, but I thought it was kind of a brilliant horror science, a science warning against science kind of book.
Yeah, pastiche. That's a good word. Pastiche. Try to say that word.
A pastiche is an imitation. So you could say that this was
a pastiche. Everything being blended together.
No.
Maybe look that up.
Maybe in the art world or something. But in terms of novels, a pastiche is like, all those books that are exactly like a Conan book, but the name of the character is different than Conan. That's
those are imitations or ripoffs.
Pastiche means
okay.
A pastiche kind of implies a loving ripoff. I love this book so much. I'm gonna
homage, do like homage. But yeah, we both of us were. I mean, we liked this book. We both, I remember, liked it.
I think
we weren't like.
I think she's a very good writer. I think. Yes. I think you felt the same. Yeah.
Yeah. We both enjoyed the book, but thought it was missing something, because I remember I thought it focused too much on romance or the triangle. There was like a love triangle going on. And it
ultimately did not explore. Well, I don't want to spoil what we find out in the end, but ultimately did not explore what should have been, this huge factor of what was going on. It didn't really explore that. It just threw it out there as, here's our little surprise, and then we move on to other stuff.
There's no real monsters in this, and that's unforgivable.
But it does seem like it would be a good idea to re-explore Dr. Moreau, and I think a lot of other novels have. But one factor is there are 0 female characters in the original novel. Like, women do not appear. I don't think they're even mentioned.
There might have been a female monster.
Maybe. They
but you're right.
In the movie. In the movie, they had a panther lady who was supposed to be all sexy.
Well, that just proves men are evil.
Right.
This is all about evil. And
that's true. There was no good person in this book. So, But in any case, I think it is ripe for exploring and giving it some more modern twists. And actually, this one's kind of derivative too, not of a specific book, but of a whole genre of movies.
Yeah.
And Preservation Society, which we also did a video on, so I will also.
We did. And this was just fun fluff. I think that John Scalzi, first of all, he's really famous. He's getting a lot of awards. Right. But it seems like he's one of these people who are writing books to be made into movies.
Interesting.
It just, yeah, it's just like, to me, it's fun fluff. I enjoyed it. It wasn't a bad book at all, but it just, at the end of the day,
Right.
it's kind of fluff and
You enjoyed it more than I did.
forgettable. Yeah.
Because I couldn't tell the characters apart, and that started to really bug me.
Oh yeah, there were 4 characters. I remember that.
That were
And,
all kind of identical seeming.
yeah.
One of them was a they, but that was the only difference.
Yes, and I liked the world building. I liked the visuals of the, the
I
kaiju
agree. The world
spanning world.
building, it was actually, despite being fluff, it was actually a very good hard science fiction world building.
Yeah,
It wasn't just taking these imaginary kaiju.
yes.
He actually created a biological world that could have these giant creatures in it.
Yeah, and I felt it would easily translate into a movie. Like, I could see this being a show.
Well, and it ended like a James Bond movie with the big confrontation with the villain and his hordes of minions and stuff.
Yeah, all of that. So fun, to me, fun fluff.
Right. And again, he noted that he wrote this to do something fun during the COVID lockdown when he wrote it. And speaking of fun fluff,
yes,
the ultimate brilliant fun fluff, I would say, the best fun fluff you can get.
This is the one that surprised us so much.
We both thought we would hate it.
And we loved it.
We loved it. It was awesome.
So that, I mean, just that cover alone makes me want to run screaming from this book. But since it was on the list, we had to read it.
We hated this cover so much.
Oh, it's awful. It's
there
so
awful. There was a better cover in the British edition.
Yeah.
But
I mean, that looks like an 8th grader did it. But it's still way better than that. But yeah, this was a lot of fun. It was just a lot of fun. This author made this world, and it just really kind of, and even though it had problems, like we didn't believe the steps, the progress this shop made in such a significantly short period of time. But it was like, who cared? We were just enjoying the ride.
It was all
so
too
much.
easy, I suppose. But
yeah.
But it was like I don't know. It was very pleasant. I think this has become like the defining book of what cozy romance means.
Cozy fantasy. Cozy fantasy, yeah.
Which, again, you and I, being old guys, were unfamiliar with that concept even.
I know. I was just like, look at this thing. But wow. If you could, that was surprising that it was such.
And you were talking about, quote, wokeness. I mean, this is full of that, right? But it does it well. It takes all that material and integrates it into its world. And, so it didn't at all stand out to me in a way. It was just fun to read. So.
Yeah. So if we go back to that theme, like the reading these books is kind of important, because if you stick to strict literature, we're getting a totally different side of writing and direction. So sci-fi is leading the way in all of these female characters and all of these ideas about gender and sexuality. And I mean, it's in every book that I'm reading by the Hugo. And I'm telling you, even because I'm reading.
You're reading all the novellas now.
It's in all of those. And I think, like, if you don't read some of these things, you're missing out on a direction that writing is taking, because I do see it to some extent, but this is going like full force.
So what you're saying is the science fiction fantasy world is reacting quicker to societal changes than perhaps other genres are.
Yeah.
Or non-genre literary fiction is.
Yeah.
Which you read a lot more of
hitting us over the head with it, but that's a good thing, because every author is doing their spin on it.
Right. Yeah. So, one big thing, if you look back at the history of Hugo's, until very recently, almost all the nominees would be male. It would be a big deal if there was one female. And now I think there were 2 males and 4 females.
And It's a very good thing. All of the diversity is
Uh-huh.
great. I'm just I know I wanted to bring up the fact that there's a Booker nominee that didn't make it to the final list, and that was In Ascension, and it
Right,
turned out
which
to
you
be
mentioned on a recent video on your channel.
it turned out to be a sci-fi book. I had no idea, and it wasn't even long listed or whatever put in this nominee list. And
Right.
it's shocking to me because the writing quality in that book is like light years ahead of these books. Like the writing is so good in that book. Um, so it was really strange because number one, maybe because it was science fiction, it didn't make it to the upper tiers in that award. But
Hmm.
because it was too literary, maybe, or not science fiction enough, it didn't make it on to this award. And so I'm
Well,
wondering what's going on. Like, why
I
is this
think
so divided?
I think it's the way publishers, I mean, I've told you this before, I think it's the way
Yeah.
publishers market things. So I don't think the science fiction readers are going to discover this literary book, quote, literary book, a book published as a literary book until it's too late for the award season. It might filter into the science fiction reading world over time, but since it wasn't marketed towards them, they won't know about it quickly enough to hail it uh, in the Hugo Awards. But
Yeah, it's
also, all of these,
very
to me, in general, these lack they may have other ambitions, but they lack the kind of ambition that I used to associate with award-winning science fiction, which is not literary or great writing, but it is kind of
ideas.
groundbreaking ideas, groundbreaking sort of vistas, new ways of seeing the universe or man's place in the universe. Um, these were more smaller books about people's place in society, I guess,
Mm.
to the
Hmm.
extent that they explored anything important. Maybe the kaiju preservation society may change your perspective a bit of like, oh, there could be a world where the whole
Alternate reality,
biological system is different than
parallel world. Yeah, parallel worlds, parallel Earths,
yeah.
that kind of idea.
It ended
Yeah,
up kind of trivializing that by the Hollywood ending and everything. But
yeah. These awards are also overwhelmingly fantasy, more so than science fiction. Which I've said this so many times. I have nothing against fantasy, but it's not my go-to. And when I actually have to read them, I enjoy them. But for some reason, I just don't go to the shelf and pick them up. It's just not my thing. But
yeah,
I will, if I see a spaceship on the cover, or if anything says time travel, like I immediately go for it. So yeah, but being forced to read all these fantasy books makes me realize, there's so many great fantasy books out there that I'm ignoring, but I don't think it's gonna I'm not gonna change but I'm
yeah.
so
I
but
don't
this
feel driven to read the next fantasy novel. It
no.
just, I mean, I think the science fiction readership is much smaller than the fantasy readership, but I think the people who like science fiction are addicted to that feeling of getting a new vision, a
Yeah.
new a new twist on kind of the scientific view of the universe as opposed to the smaller kind of issues in life.
Yeah.
It's fine to have this general award, but I would like an award for as a reference for science fiction readers, people who only want science fiction. I want an only science fiction award. And I guess somehow that sounds prejudice or something, but just
But
so that I could have highlighted, because I think nominees are more interesting than winners, right? It's good to have a list of
yeah.
uh, strong books from the year. So a yearly award for things that can be pretty easily classified as science fiction would be useful.
Yeah. But the problem is, for example, Spare Man, that
Yeah,
one falls kind of into both. It's on a space station, right?
yeah, I would
But it's
say that counts as science fiction. And the kaiju book counts as science fiction, and the others don't.
But I wouldn't consider them like the kind of science fiction we're actually looking for.
Well, yeah, I personally would not put them on a.
We want Dune to win every year.
But to my knowledge, there's no award anymore that is focused just on science fiction.
No, yeah, this is the science fiction fantasy.
I think the Nebula Awards also go to both science fiction and fantasy now. And then there's the World Fantasy Award. And I'm trying to think, there's one other fairly well-known award, but I can't remember it. Maybe those are the three.
Yeah. But overall, these 5 books were fun to delve into, and I don't think any of them were a waste of time. Even the ones that we really didn't like, they weren't awful. There was no really bad book among the bunch, in my opinion. I know you disliked one, but I don't think you did.
I would say there was one book that I would not have finished it unless I was committed to you to finish it.
Oh, okay. So then you did. Yeah, you disliked one enough that you could say that. But I thought it was an enjoyable experience overall. This is the kind of thing I live for. I go through these things on my own, and to have someone to talk about them and keep me on track is really good. I mean, I almost said I still got to do Nona the Ninth. I will get there.
Well, we could also talk about the difference. Not that there is a difference between audiobook experience and reading experience. So some of these I did as audiobooks. The ones I didn't like, I read as books.
Huh. That's interesting.
And I'm trying to think. I mean, which did I do as audio? I only did one as an audiobook. So yeah, I just wonder how The Spare Man would have struck you if you had to read every word yourself rather than I know you do your audiobooks at like 8 times speed, but
I'm going to be honest, I wouldn't have been able to get through all these books because I don't have the time. And I pick, like I said, well, I do have the time, but I waste it on other things. Like, as I said in my other video, I'm so bad with like sticking to a book because of my attention span recently. Right. Like, I'm so often picking up my phone. Like, I will read a page and then I'll be like, oh, let me check my emails. Like, this is not good for reading because when you read, you have to sit and you have to commit and your mind starts flowing and you get faster as you go. And so I wouldn't have gotten through all of them. I probably would have gotten through the shorter ones. I would have forced myself probably, but the long ones, I don't know. I would have been asking you for more time to get through them. But that's just me. So audio helps me get through these books. And I do like the narrators, many of them who use different accents and they try to change their voice for different characters. The acting aspect of audio books I find really entertaining and interesting.
Legends and Lattes is the one that I did do as an audiobook, and he read his own book, and he is a professional audiobook narrator. That's where he got his start. So I don't know what I might have perceived it differently had I read it in prose. I really liked The Daughter of Dr. Moreau on the prose level because I was reading it line by line. It might have affected me differently as an audiobook. And my confusion in Kaiju, Kaiju Preservation Society might have been different with someone reading it. So the characters all seeming the same might have been solved by an actor making the voices a little, subtly different or something.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. I was just looking up I wanted to remind you and everyone that you actually gifted me the Audible Spare Man. Do you remember that?
Right, because we couldn't get it from the library. Yeah, and I use Audible so much that I'm sort of immune to feeling bad about paying for audiobooks.
Yeah. So I was going to look it up and show you, but as soon as I went to click it, it wanted me to log in. My login information. I was like, oh, no, don't have time for that. But again, I wanted to thank you for that. And also because of this, I was able to revisit two classics. I don't know if I've ever actually read The Thin Man, but I think I had. And also Island of Dr. Moreau. And that's always a good thing, going back and revisiting some.
Well, that's another trend, is because 3 out of these 6 books were inspired by other material, either by kaiju movies or by other books. And then you mentioned the thing you're liking that's based on The Fall of the House of Usher.
Yeah.
So, and didn't I heard you on another? You were talking about I can't even say that. Annihilation.
Inhalation
was based on Roadside Picnic, you were saying.
Yeah, it's totally.
So maybe that's a huge trend in modern fantasy and science fiction, is to revisit classics.
Yes, but spoiler: Annihilation is 1,000 times better than Roadside Picnic, and
that's a large number of times better.
So much better. I
was excited to go read Roadside Picnic, but maybe
Roadside Picnic is interesting in itself, but to me, maybe it needs an updated translator. Not translator. What do we call that?
For Annihilation and Roadside Picnic, did you both do them both as audiobooks?
No. In fact, I think I read both. I actually have the Roadside Picnic right there. No,
so you
it's
read
one of those sci-fi masterpieces.
And translation is a big issue too. I'm always a little upset about reading translated books.
Translation seemed stilted when I read Roadside Picnic, and that can definitely affect your reading of it. It had awesome ideas, and those ideas go directly into Stalker.
So Jeff Vandermeer stole their ideas, but he's a better writer, at least as far as we can tell from the translation.
Yes, man, that book is freaky.
So thank you very much for being willing to come on to my new BookTube channel and expose our ignorance to everybody.
That's half the fun.
I'm sure that you will be back on this channel again, because
thank you.
You're like a bad habit I can't get rid of.
I have a bad petty that keeps turning up.